you run your own freelance business? Or maybe you're thinking about picking up some business on the side? Well, then you need FreshBooks. FreshBooks is the quickest and easiest way to get invoices out to your clients. It's easy to use. It works anywhere, available from any device, on the desktop, iPhone, iPad, Android, and all of your data is backed up and secure. And it makes it really easy to get organized and get paid. You'll be tracking time, logging expenses, and invoicing your clients in no time. You can also save time billing, freeing up several days per month to focus on the work that you love, and you get paid faster. FreshBooks customers are paid on average 5 days faster because there's a link on the invoice that says pay me now. And it's a great way to grow your business. Plus, FreshBooks is offering a 30-day trial. That's right, 30-day trial if you try them out. So go to gofreshbooks.com/devchat and enter devchat in the How Did You Hear About Us section. Once again, for a 30-day trial, go to gofreshbooks.com/devchat and enter devchat in the How Did You Hear About Us section.
Hey everyone, welcome to another Ruby Rogues podcast. I am David Kimura, and today on our panel we have Catherine Meyers.
Hello, hello.
And we have a very special guest, Vishal Telangre. So can you please pronounce your name? Because I don't think I did it justice at all.
All right. Hello, Dave and Catherine.
Hello. So tell us a little bit about yourself, who you work for, and just some of the things that you're doing.
Hello, my name is Vishal. I work at BigBinary. Like me, everybody in BigBinary works remotely. So we need not to go to office every day. So we can actually work from anywhere around the world. That is really good about BigBinary. So myself, I work on Ruby on Rails. From past 2 years, I have been working at BigBinary. Besides Ruby on Rails, I also work on Kuberernetes as well as a new language, which is Elm, which is a strictly typed front-end programming language. So I guess that's all about me.
Yeah, and BigBinary is pretty popular as far as a lot of different blogs. So how many blog posts do you guys publish a week or a day?
Yeah, so that is a really good thing to talk about. So in BigBinary, basically we write about the experiences that we encounter a lot of things while working on the software we build at BigBinary. So sometimes we write about experiences, and sometimes we just want to share new things that we have discovered. And every week, a lot of people have something to say about to the world that they have learned over the week. And also there is one encouraging thing we do at BigBinary is we have client-free Fridays. So basically on each Friday, we have an opportunity to work on anything like writing blogs or contributing to some open source softwares that we really care about, or actually which had helped us to build our software easily. So we have that ability or opportunity at BigBinary to work on those things besides working on the client projects or on the projects which are of BigBinary itself. So because of these encouragements, many of the people working at BigBinary, they produce so many useful blog posts over a week.
I think a lot of companies try to emulate that and have a big company blog post and not all succeed. So the fact that they give you time on Friday is wonderful. I'm sure a lot of companies are wondering out there how they can do this themselves. So in addition to time on Fridays, is there any other type of motivation or culture that adds to having a lot of people submit blog posts?
Right, exactly. Even when I was working at previous company, not BigBinary, over there they also had similar thing that I mean they were encouraging to write blog posts on Fridays, but the story was a bit different. I mean there was instead of encouragement, people were feeling more of a kind of order, and which means that they were feeling bit a pressure from the top management that you have to produce blog posts. Uh, on a different, I mean, on the other hand, at BigBinary, actually, we have, I mean, we have to decide whether we are, whether we can write a blog about a particular thing or not. It's up to the, us at BigBinary, whether we can really write about it or not. And that is, because of that, most of the time some people actually write more than one blog post. Sometimes 2 to 3 blog posts are produced, authored by a same guy many of the times.
Nice. I feel like I always feel good after I write a blog post, but to me, it's not something I love to do, but it's more like how I feel about going to the gym. It's not something I really want to do, but I'm always happy after I did it. You always understand something so much better once you've written about it. Do you have any suggestions for somebody trying to write their first blog post or get into blogging?
Yeah, so in the show notes of this podcast, I'll actually give the link of my blog posts that I have written at BigBinary's blog website. So when I written my first blog post, it was merely had uh, about 100 or 200 words, and it was about Rails basic feature, which was introduced in Rails version 5.2. And for that, I just needed to go through the pull request on the GitHub of Rails repository, and I just needed to just see what was the discussion happened over there, and see what made what was the first issue. I mean, why the particular feature request was created, and based on what discussion that particular feature request was being implemented in the pull request. When you have to write your first blog post, you just need to understand the story, like how it got started, and what was the finishing line. So that so it is something like you just need to create an outline of of a story, and if you just start writing it in a first draft, you'll see that there is a great story over there, and after 2 to 3 iterations, by some edits by yourself, or by asking to review by some your colleagues, you'll get that blog post ready to be published actually on a blog site. So yeah, I mean that's how I was able to write and publish my first blog post. And if anybody is going to start, going to write their first blog post, just start with a simple topic, a simple feature which nobody really cares about, or actually you can actually choose a topic you found useful, like any simple feature which you use day to day, or found something really interesting to speak about it. So just choose that and write some words about it, some sentences about it. That's it.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people think their blog post has to change the world in order to be, worthy of getting out on the interwebs. And I love telling people, nope, You can write about something that somebody else has already written about. I'm sure you have a different take on it. You can write about something small, something that you think like matters a little bit less, but it just get it out there.
Right. It just depends. I mean, some people choose to write on topics which they feel like it should, take reader to. I mean, readers should be able to, spend more than half an hour to read that blog post. That is how some people feel about it. And some blog posts are, pretty tiny. It just takes 1 or 2 minutes to, go through it, and reader gets an idea. Like, I mean, he learns something. He or she learns something by reading it. So
I love those short blog posts. They're my favorite.
Right.
And when in doubt, add a GIF.
And one thing I like about BigBinary's blogs is that whenever there's a new Rails version or a new Ruby version coming out, you guys really dive into like all the nitty gritties of what's coming up, what's changing in the next major version. So I remember last year before, seeing just a lot of different posts on some of the new things that Rails was bringing out.
Exactly. Right. So fun part about BigBinary's blogs. I mean, BigBinary itself is three. I mean, among us, there are three people which are core contributors of Rails itself, and I mean, you can actually check their names in the contributor list on Rails website. So they are Prathamesh, Vipul, and Neeraj. So these guys, they always keep track of what's coming and what's getting dropped from the Rails, as well as they also keep an eye on the new features or new bugs reported on the Ruby's bug tracker as well. And because of them, when we, the other people working at BigBinary, look at them, we really see an inspiration. Because of them, we also started tracking the Rails bug tracker as well as Ruby's bug tracker, and because of that, we are able to write such kind of blog posts.
Yeah, at least you guys are a Ruby workshop. I would imagine following a .NET bug tracker would just be insane. Your inbox would never stop. Sorry, just had to throw that dig there. So that's really cool. So the whole purpose that we had you on the show today was because one of the blog posts that you had written about on the Ruby backtrace. So in Ruby 2.5, there are some interesting behaviors that are happening now that did not happen before. Do you want to dive into that?
Right. So recently I wrote a blog post about this new feature which Ruby 2.5 has introduced. The feature is about printing the error backtrace and error message in the reverse order. So let me tell about how the backtrace was getting printed in the previous versions of Ruby. So before Ruby 2.5, whenever there is an exception, an uncaught exception, the default behavior of Ruby to print the backtrace on the terminal was something like this. So you were getting, a backtrace, exceptions class, and then error message at the top, and the further lines contained was showing where in the program that exception was raised, and after that some more lines which helps to determine how the cascaded calls were being made and which caused that exception to raise. So that is how exceptions backtrace was getting printed before Ruby 2.5. Now what had changed in Ruby 2.5 and in later versions is something like this. So now the exception backtrace is printed in a reverse order. What does it mean in reverse order? So in that blog post, I have added some examples to demonstrate that. So now the exception, if you look at the backtrace which is printed on the terminal, there are two changes, noticeable changes we can see. First change is the error message and the exception class is printed at the bottom, which means it is the last line of the printed backtrace. And the second noticeable change is the stack. The stack also adds a frame number when printing the backtrace in reverse order. So this stack, the frame numbers helps user to understand where exactly that exception was raised. Because of this feature, now debugging is a little more convenient when the backtrace size is quite big and cannot fit in a terminal window. So the earlier what was happening, I mean, the OP which had requested this feature, he had posted an example wherein he was saying that his terminal size was as normal, but the exception backtrace was really big and it wasn't fitting in his terminal, and because of that he needed to scroll down, actually scroll up too much to see what exactly exceptions class was and what was the error message basically. Because of that, it was a bit inconvenient to understand or really understand why that particular program or something, why that exception was caused. And after this feature, since the exception class and error message is printed at the bottom, one need not to scroll, top in the terminal window. Instead of that, one can see directly the cause behind that exception because it is already printed at the bottom.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge change. One, for a lot of companies that are doing logging and stuff, that's going to change how they are handling the logs, whether it's Sumo Logic or Sentry or any one of those. So I'm sure that they're going to have to take a lot of that into account when displaying or parsing the logs. But from a developer standpoint, I mean, that's such a huge change. And it's a welcoming one too, because if you think back from other languages, whether it's C, Java, or any kind of .NET thing, it's always been the standard de facto to go from the top to the bottom with the errors. So you would always have to scroll up in your terminal if your screen wasn't big enough or if your terminal wasn't large enough to actually see what raised the exception. And even though that's not that big of a deal to just scroll up a little bit, that's still time taken away. And especially if you're prone to writing buggy code like I am, then you're going to be scrolling up a lot in your terminal. And I mean, honestly, that's just going to save a bit of time and, just make the overall development a bit more pleasant.
Exactly. So if you look at the sentiments on Reddit or on the feature ticket itself on the Ruby's bug tracker, the sentiments are a bit mixed. Some people really like that feature, and some people felt really annoyed because of it. First thing, I mean, as a developer, when you are writing software and when you look at the terminal, as you have said, it saves a bit time. I mean, you need not to scroll at top to see the exact error which produced that exception, and instead you just need to take a look at the terminal instead of scrolling. That is really convenient. And the people which are saying that they are feeling annoyed about this feature, they say about the things like this feature is actually is not consistent. So I'll tell you about what exactly this means. I mean, why this feature is not consistent. So this feature has been enabled only in case the standard error output device, which is std error, is unchanged and is a tty, which means it's a terminal, right? So in that case only the ruby's backtrace is printed in the reverse order. Otherwise it is printed as it was printed before ruby 2.5. So that is what makes people feel annoyed, because it is the printed backtrace is not really consistent. It appears in reverse order sometimes, it appears in normal order sometimes. So uh, that is I mean, that is what people are really are discussing about this feature, and some people are really feeling irritating, I mean, getting irritated because of this.
Yeah, but at the same time, if it is in my terminal when I'm actually doing the development, then having it in the quote reverse or the new way is definitely useful. But if I'm looking at my logs or kind of scrolling through my logs, I think it would make sense to have it in the old standard way where you're going more chronologically than you are for convenience. So I can see it both ways and the benefits of having it the way they have it. But I definitely agree. I can see where there might be some uprise there or some confusion as to when it does what.
Right. So actually, myself, I have tested the support of this feature, and I personally, I really liked this feature, because when I am developing on my computer, I really want to see the. I really like the idea of about seeing the error class and message at the bottom itself. Earlier, I had to scroll up a bit and see the exact error message. So what I tested myself is with a, I created a new Rails app and used Ruby 2.5 in that, and the default thin server actually. I mean, I used Puma server as an app server, and amazingly, I noticed that the backtrace which was appeared in the Puma's log, it was in old style, which means it wasn't in the reverse order. That was really amazing, because I thought that Puma might have I mean, Puma might be using the Ruby's style of printing the backtrace of an exception, but it wasn't the case. So in case of Puma, it still prints the error backtrace in the old fashion, or we can say the normal fashion so far. Also, I used Minitest to execute the tests for that application with the Ruby 2.5 version, and it printed the exception messages in the reverse style as expected. So because Minitest is part of uh, Ruby core itself, so we can understand that Minitest must be delegating the exception printing logic to Ruby itself. So that wasn't. I mean, that was as expected. In case of RSpec, which is another testing library used in Ruby and is really popular. So RSpec was still printing the exception messages in the old style, which is in the top to bottom manner. So that was also another, I was really amazed about it, because RSpec and Puma, these are the two gems, popular gems used by people, but they still use the old style of printing the backtrace. Yeah, I think I mean, that was my findings about this feature. I mean, how Ruby and its core packages or gems use it, and how other popular third-party gems, uh, have implemented this feature.
That's great. I wonder if RSpec and Puma have any plans to go along with this change at all in the future. No clue.
Right. Even I don't think Aspect would integrate this feature down the line.
So Vishal, you also wrote about the full message method from the exception class in your blog post. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and how that is changing in 2.5?
Right. So as we have been discussing about how Ruby 2.5 prints the exception message in the top to bottom, bottom to top manner or in the reverse manner, people were annoyed about that feature. So, and some people really liked about it, right? But still, since this feature is only enabled when stdr is a TTY and is unchanged, that means if it is not attached to something like a file object, then this feature is enabled by default, and there is no another way to disable it or enable it in the if that criteria doesn't match. So some people really wanted to make use of this, to print the similar backtrace the way this feature prints. And for that, Ruby 2.5 has added an additional method, which is full message on the exception class. So what that full message method does is basically it prints in the same, it uses the same format to print the backtrace. And the format is like it prints the frames in the reverse order, as well as the exceptions class, and then exception message at the bottom. So if in case in Aspect or in Puma or in any other gem, if this feature is not enabled, or if logs are being redirected to another file, a log file, where we have attached a file object to the stdr. In that case, someone might want to use the same format consistently, like what that user sees on her terminal, as well as what she sees in the log file. And in that case, that user can use this exception.full message to use the same formatting to print the exception in the back in the reverse order. So I think that's that is all about that method. Nothing really fancy over there. Just in case someone is wanting to make use of the formatting which has been used to print the backtrace in Ruby 2.5, they can take a look at the exception full message method.
That sounds exceptional. Sorry, I've been waiting to make that joke for at least the past 3 minutes.
Hey, Vishal, this is Eric Berry. I am sorry I'm late onto the podcast. It's really great to meet you. Hey, do you know if this data that's going to be coming out of the full message is going to be included then on all of those third-party error tracking tools such as Rollbar or Sentry or those types?
Yes, actually. So whenever we are catching an exception explicitly, right? Whenever there is an exception handling logic, or there we already have the exception object, and on that exception object we can call this full message method, and we will if we print that, even if it is not even if stdr is not a TTY and is changed like we are writing logs to an external file. Even in that case, with this full message method, we will get the format which prints exceptions backtrace in the reverse order. So that can be done. And in every other gem like Sentry or Rollbar or Honeybadger, or in the conventional Rails.logger, Rails.info.logger, we can make use of this full message method.
That's great. Has that made a big difference for you so far?
Yeah. So far, I have been using custom formatting whenever I have to handle an exception explicitly. So, for example, I make use of AWS SDK for Ruby, and over there, sometimes I need to ignore some exceptions raised by that SDK. In that case, I just add an explicit exception handling logic for particular error classes. And over there, until now, what I was doing is using Rails.logger. I was printing errors class, then exceptions message, and then joining backtrace array using a new line character. That is how I was doing so far. But with this full message, you just need to eat exception.full message. You have to do that, and you will get a fancy formatted exception in your logs. That is my story so far. I mean, I'm really in love with this new formatting of the exception backtrace printing.
Very cool.
Was there anything else that we want to add to the conversation, or should we move on to picks?
I think I have that. That's all about it. Yeah, we can move to the picks.
All right. Well, Vishal, if people want to get a hold of you or see what you're doing online, where should they go?
Yes. So I'm on Twitter. My handle is Suruwat. It is spelled as Suruwat. You can find me over there on Twitter. I'm also on GitHub. So my GitHub handle is Vishal Telangre. I'll post the links in the show notes of this podcast, so people can check it out.
Great. Thank you, Vishal. So let's move on to some picks here.
For you, the listeners of Ruby Rogues, Loot Crate is offering an opportunity to save 10% on any new subscription at lootcrate.com. Just enter the promo code BRIDGE10 for 10% savings. Loot Crate is one of my favorite things. Every month I get a box in the mail, costs less than $20, and it comes with all kinds of goodies. I have stuff from, just looking at my shelf, Batman, Spider-Man, Ninja Turtles, Back to the Future, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, and much, much more. So if you're a geek, a gamer, anything like that, and you want cool stuff to put around your office, cool t-shirts, comic books, etc., then definitely check out Loot Crate. To save 10% on your new subscription, go to lootcrate.com/Ruby. Again, that's lootcrate.com/Ruby to save 10% on any new subscription. Enter the promo code BRIDGE10 for 10% savings.
Eric, what are your picks for this week?
I have a sad story to tell as my pick. And it has a happy ending, so we're okay with that. But a couple of days ago, my computer, I have the MacBook Pro, top of the line 13-inch, latest release with that butterfly keyboard. And for about 6 months, that my N key wouldn't work. And I've tried every single thing I could. And then I thought, okay, well, the computer also slowly started going slower and slower and slower. So I just thought, okay, I have a lemon. So I took it in, and they took it, and I went over to. I was like, I'm done with you, Apple. So I went over to the Microsoft store in the mall, and I bought myself a top of the line Surface Book 2, and I I knew about the new Ubuntu subsystem on it. I took it home. I got it all set up to develop. I was actually able to develop on it. But as great as that hardware is, Windows is terrible. It's a terrible experience in comparison to the cleanliness of iOS or of OS 10. And it was just kind of, you had to like hurdle through every tiny little bit. And so what I decided to do was I took that back the next day, and the guy was really sad because I told him I was going to use it for programming and it didn't work. Then I went right back over to Apple and I said, hey guys, I need another laptop. And so I bought myself another laptop, and so far it's great, but you know, it'll be quite terrible if a particle of dust gets under my keyboard and it costs $500 to repair. I'm kind of hoping against that, but yeah, there we are. That's my pick. Is the developers the developer conundrum of only having one really good option to develop on.
Yeah, that's not so fun.
Mm-mm.
It'd be great if we had lots of options. Okay, all right, I'll go with my picks. So my first pick is leetcode.com, leetcode.com. We all know that interviewing is very different from the day-to-day job you do every day, and it takes practice to get back in there. And I think LeetCode is a really great place to practice all of those interview questions that you don't really think about every day. And it's got a lot of helpful algorithm questions and all that stuff. And they have different tracks that you can do: easy, medium, hard, different levels. They even have tracks for different companies. These are the most, questioned things at Facebook, at Amazon, at Google, and all that jazz. So I think it's a really good resource out there for someone who is interviewing. And my second pick, because we're starting into summer and basil is coming into season, my favorite thing to make ever is pesto. And you put it on top of pasta, and it is the most amazing thing ever. And it reminds me of my childhood. It's what I grew up with. And a recipe by Marcella Hazan is the one that I recommend. It's incredible. You can use a blender to make it, or I usually use a Cuisinart to make it. But now that it is summer, you need to go to the farmer's market and pick up some basil and make this recipe. It is amazing. You will thank me. All right, Vishal, what are your picks for this week?
Yeah, so I have just one pick. So recently, I watched a video presented by Douglas Engelbart in 1968. It was called as the mother of all demos. So in that video, Douglas demonstrates so many great features, that too back in 1968. The features are, something like he uses a small personal computer with a CRT monitor, uses a mouse and a keyboard for navigation, and that too with negligible lag on a UI on the CRT monitor. He also uses a software with advanced text processing and manipulation techniques similar to Emacs or Vim. Also, he interacts with some files which has dynamic linking. He's able to switch between files very easily. Hundreds of files. Then he also demonstrates file revisions and history, something similar to Git or SVN, something like that. Also, the more important thing I really liked in that video was a live collaboration between Douglas and Bill English. So Bill English is one who invented mouse, right? So he interacts with Bill English Bill English is, he's sitting some miles away from Douglas, and both of them, does a live collaboration on a file. and both of them can see each other. They can talk to each other, as well as can work on a same document, a file. Actually, basically they can edit and see mouse pointer of each other. So everything is a real live collaboration that we are using today. I mean, most of the features are still just coming out, but I really like that in 1968, when there was no Macintosh or no Windows at that time, he was able to present that demonstration, and because of that, that presentation is called as the mother of all demos. So yeah, I'll post the link to that video on YouTube, so we can add it in the show notes. And one can also check out the same, on Wikipedia about the same presentation. So yeah, that's it from my side.
Great. Thank you so
Cool.
much, Vishal. Dave, do you have some picks?
I tried to come up with some, but I really didn't have any for today. So I'm going to just pick the generic power tools. Power tools are a lot of fun. I've been using them a lot lately. Specifically, and here's my pick: 20-gallon air compressor from Husky. The thing is amazing. We use it all the time now. So we got this blow-up pool in our backyard, and I just ran my air hose out there and just plugged it right in and blew up that thing in under a minute. So air compressors are awesome.
So are you inviting us all to a pool party? Is that what you're saying?
It's a kiddie pool. So if you have kids, we have a kiddie pool party.
I can fit in. I'll make it happen.
All right. Well, Vishal, thank you for joining us today. It was a lot of fun talks.
Yeah, thanks. I really liked, having conversation with you all. It was really fun.
Thanks, Vishal.
All right. We'll talk to y'all later.
All right,
Bye.
see ya.
Bandwidth for this segment is provided by CacheFly, the world's fastest CDN. Deliver your content fast with CacheFly. Visit CACHEFLY.com to learn more.